G'day C3 parents, I'm your host Karien and Pitout. Join us on this conversation regarding parenting and adoption. Joining me is Alexa Russell Matthews, a social worker for the Rice family. The adjustment, when we actually finally met face to face, your youngest just joined the family and I was so excited because and it was actually a source of strength for me when you actually put down your foot and said, okay, I appreciate your love and care for him, but I'm not going to let you pick him up or whatever because we're working on attachment to connect with the family and only family members. It was like, oh, I didn't know that. And actually a part of me felt like, oh, damn it, I should have known this. But on the other hand, I don't deal with a lot of, families who adopted or grew through adoption. So to me, that was like, oh, yeah, but this actually, if from my what the research and things that I've done, it should have been a no-brainer that I shouldn't even have, in a sense, have offered. But it was such an awesome opportunity for me to see someone that I personally admire stand in her ground and stand in her feet and say, this is my boundary. And you weren't mean about it. You weren't offish about it. You stood in your boundary and almost like giving the information in a, oh, well, you have to accept this now kind of way. And I guess that comes from years of experience of having to put that boundary down, either within your work or even within your family and how your family gets, encounters life outside the home. And I wanted to compliment you. I took a piece of that and carry that with me. To find that confidence, and instead of being snarky or mean to people when I put down a boundary, actually to give it in a way that you kind of give them it's a no-brainer, but to accept that boundary. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. No, so yeah, just for some context, there is also that I met Karien during a training course. So I think that you weren't the only person that offered. There were a few people that offered, actually. And so that's why I eventually, and he is, and my youngest is, he was cheeks when he was little. He was just these big cheeks and this fluffy hair. And there were a couple of people that actually said to me, oh, Alexa, if he needs to be held, you need to hand him over. And I remember during that day at one point, there was a section of the presentation that I was going to do. And one of my colleagues actually said to me, Lex, do you want me to do this? Because he had fallen asleep on my chest. And I was like, I'm very happy for you to do that. And we just left him because actually sometimes you just need to be next to the heart. That is the heart that you've got to learn to trust. Yes. So thank you for respecting my boundary, but it's very much, and I think the other part of that is how do we put boundaries in place, especially when our children are present with us, that honors them in how we're communicating the boundary. And so that's something I've had to learn, because there are times where I've had to protect my child and walk away.
Right. So with non-punitive parenting, a lot of parents ask, but where's the discipline? Because a lot of people actually misdiagnose. No, that's not the word. You just get the right.
Can I maybe
ask again?
It's not, so people misunderstand actually that. Yeah, so I think one of the big challenges is people think that when you gentle parent, non-punitive parent, whatever you want to call it, respectful, any of the gambits around here, positive parenting, whatever you want to call it. Because I think people think that you are raising children with this laissez-faire attitude that they're allowed to do whatever they want, and that's not true. But what we do is we empathically reflect. Let me try that again. I hacked over that word. Empathically reflect. I hope you could hear that one.
Yes.
And set boundaries at the same time. So I can see you really cross and you're really frustrated. Hitting hurts. I'm not going to let you hit me. Okay. So how do we manage that without hitting back? How do we manage that by modeling the preferred behavior? How do we navigate that? And what I like about parenting this way is that there are natural consequences. If you tip the table over, if you throw your food on the floor, your food's gone. I'm not going to go make you a whole new plate of food. You've made a decision. Obviously, I'm not going to let my child starve. Like, please don't go report me to another social worker. But actually, that's the decision you've made. Yesterday, my son was hungry, so I made him a jam sandwich. like with homemade bread that Mama made, and he was excited because it's Mama made bread and whatever. And then when I turned around, he told me he's still hungry, but I realized he had just licked the jam off the bread. So now he wanted something else to eat as a snack. And I was like, oh, no. Like, no. Like, you need to finish. That's, that's what you wanted. And you can't just eat the jam. Like, then I could have given you a teaspoon of jam, which I don't do. Then I could have given you a teaspoon of jam. Like, no. Like, let's work this one through. It's the same with if, when we come to switching off screen time or whatever it is that our children struggle with, all our children struggle with, is to say, I know how much that you want to carry on, but if this is messing with your ability to choose to make good decisions, and we need to think about, is this watching TV being a good friend for you or not? Like, what do you think we should do about this? How do you think we should manage it? And what I like about this approach to parenting is it's not me making all the decisions, is that we get to co-create the solutions, which also helps them problem solve. It helps them learn to self-reflect. And so everyone goes, but there's so little, Alexa, how do they do that? And I'm like, because I'm modeling and guiding where we're going. And so it sounds a little bit manipulative when I phrase it like this, but ultimately we're still going to get to where we want to be, but we're going to put tools along the way for our children to learn how to do it.
It's giving
and I think that's
real,
the difference.
Yeah, it's giving them real choices. I was raised and I think about it, close to my teenage years, my parents started this whole giving the choice thing. But the choice they would give you is you either do what I want you to do or you get punished. And then
that's not a choice.
So that's not a choice. And then if you do make a mistake, they will use the term, but you chose to be punished. And it's that kind of, so because a lot of people struggle with the idea that kids can choose. And one of the examples that I often use to parents is, or for parents to understand what a real choice looks like, is we're going to a park and there's thorns in the play park. All right. So your kid will have to put on shoes. There's no choice in whether they put on shoes, but there can be a choice on when they put on the shoes. Do you want to put your shoes on now or when we get to the park? That is a real choice. In the end of the day, they still have to wear their shoes. They don't have a say over that, but we can give them, to prior what the outcome is, we can give them real choices where there is no negative consequence or negative impact, no matter, regardless of which choice they make.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is I've faltered at times with my choices. I've given my kids choices, and the one choice is one that I actually hoped they wouldn't pick, and then they picked that one because they will always call your bluff. And I realized, oh my word, this is actually not even executable, but now I have to let it go, let that choice play out.
You've got to let it run.
The choices that I gave. So since that day, I double check every choice. I literally watch them in my head play out which direction whatever choice I give can go, to make sure that, first of all, I give them real choices. And second of all, there will be no need from my side to want to step in when they do make a choice and want to run interference.
A friend of mine said to me, she's raised 4 children. Okay, they're in a blended family, 2 biological children, 2 adopted family children, and so I love that because she's got the whole gamut of experience, and like,
absolutely,
not everything's adoption related, not everything's not, which is super important to also bear in mind when you're chatting to adopted families. Not everything's adoption linked at all. There's a lot of just parenting that's happening with an extra set of tasks that you need to do along the way. But she said to me, the way you choose to parent is far more work, actually, Alexa, because of how you're engaging. And I was like, I don't know how to not do this. But when I get it wrong, it's a lot more work, if I'm very honest, because of the fallout. So when I get this right, it's like there's this magic thing that happens. When I get this wrong, the fallout is far more exhausting. And so for me, this doesn't feel like a lot more work. It actually feels like it's more intense in terms of needing to be present and emotionally present and attuned. But it's a lot less work in terms of the fallout when I get this right. Yeah. And I think that's also the difference. And my son, from when he was little, was given choices like, which bottle do you want to drink out of? Which clothes are you going to wear? And he would point, and he couldn't tell me, but he could point at what he wants, both my children. And I'll never forget someone saying, you give them too many choices, until one day my mom and I were shopping and we walked around Toys R Us or whatever it was. And my son knew what he wanted. And my mom offered to buy, and she said she's got this amount of budget, and she offered to buy him some. And he said, no, thank you, Granny, I don't actually want that. So then I said, well, do you want something else? Granny's offering. And he said, no, thank you. So then he ended up saving. He was 3.5, 4. And my mom looked at me and she was like, Alexa, I don't know children who do that. And I was like, it's because he had a choice. Like, he's always been given choices. Like, if you don't want to spend this now, you don't have to. But, you know, what is it that you want? You want, well, we don't have budget for that. So what shall we do about that? Do you want to put in your piggy bank? And yes. And my mom looked at me that day and she was like, you've got something really right here, which was amazing for me to hear from my mother. Because
Absolutely.
Like, no matter how old we are, we still want our moms to say, you've done a good job with your children. Well, I do, you know. But I looked at that and I was like, that's because my child's learning. And is it easier having a child who's assertive and knows what he wants and doesn't want? Not always, no. Is it beautiful having a child who's assertive and knows what he wants because he knows he's allowed to occupy space? Yes. And that's what I want for him, you know, especially as a man of color in this country and as a man of color in this world. Like, I want my children to know that they have a right to occupying space.
That is, I think that is so important, which where I know that even with the conversations that I have with my kids, there is a certain, I want them to grow up with the knowledge that they are allowed to occupy spaces, but where on the flip side, I need to teach them to not take all the space, but to pull back some of the space that they're occupying so that other people can feel safe to occupy the same space as what they do, which is a different thing which I was not raised to be aware of, and having those conversations with my kids, the impact of, you know, you are allowed to be here, but pull back your presence because there's other people that needs to occupy the space as well.
So learning, and that's a social skill that they're learning. That's an important social skill. Otherwise, you know, they're not nice to play with, actually, if they don't learn that skill.
Absolutely. But
that's the basic bottom line.
Yeah. So it
has other consequences.
That whole balance.
Thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. Please drop us a comment down below, hit that like button, hit subscribe, ring that bell so you get notifications when we upload a new video, and have an absolutely wonderful day. And we look forward to journeying with you.